on with us on this episode. For those that may be joining us for the first time, my name is Ray Walters. I work with EPICompliance. I'll be your host for today's session. I have the honor to work alongside Dr. Jose Delgado, who's going to be our guest today. Again, for those that don't know, President and CEO of EPICompliance, brings over 30 years of experience in healthcare consulting. He's worked with hospitals, clinics, and healthcare IT companies across the country. Also, as a trusted resource for federal agencies like the CMS and Department of Veteran Affairs. So, now, Dr. Delgado, I appreciate you taking the time today to jump in on this, and we got a pretty good topic, I think, picked out for this episode. And
Well, we got multiple
yeah,
topics because what I want to do is, again, these are things that I deal with on a daily basis. And ideally, I want to start from the beginning, which is a lot of the time we jump on one problem, but we
sure,
forget that what is important to us may not be as important to our clients. So I got to look at it when I'm looking at, and like I say, in the last 30 years, I lost count about how many practices I open, how many new businesses I open. And some of them, for me, they're getting boring. And now that we will not take the clients in Epic Compliance, but the
sure,
challenge for me is not there anymore. I
sure,
like to do things that are new. After that, my OCD, ADD, ADHD kicks in and say, what's next? But there is a common factor that we need to look at it. And I used to look at it even on my own business on an every 6 months, every year. And it is what are businesses? Well, the first thing you got to look at it is what is the service or the product you sell? There have been people that come to me and say, I want to be in this part of the country. I want to offer these services. Well, it's almost like telling me you want to be in Alaska selling ice cubes. You may be able to make it, but it's not going to grow fast and it's going to be very hard. So
not that
you need
simple.
to, yeah, you need to understand what is your product, what is your service, what is the community, your clientele, and the location, how you're going to get there. And a lot of things that are happening right now are changing that very drastically. The next one is the laws.
Mhm.
Anybody that approached me, I say, listen, if you are not willing to follow the laws and follow the compliance, don't even talk to me. Because that means that your lifespan may be limited, or at one point in time, everything you build is going to come crashing down. And I I would say it's a point of pride for me that every one of my clients eventually becomes my friend. And we develop long-term relationships, even past the actual business. So compliance, it's not a joke. You gotta do it. It's a cost of doing business.
Absolutely.
So the third one is marketing. Marketing, you may be the best doctor, dentist, chiropractor. You may have the best mousetrap. But if your customers don't know about it, what's the point? Nobody's gonna come through the door. In the past, I remember opening an office, and within a matter of 1 year, we were very busy.
Mhm.
By 2 years, we were looking for a second person, a second provider. By the third year, we were looking for a bigger facility or another satellite office. That's not happening anymore. So marketing has to be there. Most people say, well, marketing is not essential for my business. Well, guess what? Now it is because the clients that are out there, it may be the same clients. The
Yeah.
problem is that they don't understand the priority, so the perception. Do you really have something that they need? Because even if you have something that they need, it's not what you want to sell them, it's what they want to buy. So you have to present your, I would say, your services, your products in a way that the customer say, yeah, I want to buy that. It's like, and I'm going to divert a little bit because we do have a lot to do, but this is something
Sure.
that happened to us at Epic Compliance, as a matter of fact. Dr. Headley, my partner at Epic Compliance, had a weight loss clinic, and he wanted to do primary care for Medicaid patients. I went in, and that's where we really started working together. I say, I'm going to go in, but I don't think that this is going to go the way you want it. And no, the government is paying this much and this is going to happen. So what happened was that the Medicaid patient didn't want to pay $2 copay to have their physical done or his office visit. The minute that same patient say, okay, but you can do weight loss. Well, the patient came up with the money to do full physical, EKG, CMP, comprehensive metabolic panel, and then pay cash for vitamins to help them because it was weight loss. But it was the same Medicaid patient that didn't want to pay for the copay of $2
Okay.
because they were copay. So it goes back to the perception. How do you present your services so that you can truly do what is needed for your client, not to your client, always for them, for their benefit? So that comes in and say, okay, so where do we start with this thing? So believe it or not, I want to start with the marketing piece
Sure.
because something that I'm seeing is basically breaking all the rules. And it goes back to 30 years back. 30 years back, the concept of a website that didn't exist. The internet was just coming in. I remember one of my clients, urologist in Orange Park, came to me and said, "You need to know about the internet." And I look at it and say, "What is the internet?" And he was the one that got me involved. But of course, at that point in time, a website didn't exist. And I remember the doctors fighting on the yellow pages for the position and the biggest ad and paying thousands of dollars a month for a big ad. I don't know whether too many people are paying for yellow pages anymore. So
No.
now you still see that few offices don't have a website, but a lot of them are putting a lot of money, a lot of effort on the website.
It's crazy how many people I come across, how many customers I come across that don't have websites.
Yes,
That's how do
yes.
you stay afloat? I mean, if you don't have any, because like you said, you have to have some sort of social media presence or some
Well,
sort of digital footprint,
yes, digital footprint and social media are different things because I
Sure,
know that
sure.
some basically say, "Oh, I have a Facebook page for my business." No, even he under HIPAA, you are actually supposed to have certain things posted on your website. It's a
Exactly.
requirement. If you
Exactly.
have a violation, you have to have the ability to post certain information there. So by default, those that do not have a website may be in violation of HIPAA. And that's a law. So that basically means you are breaking the law. You just don't know it. But ignorance of the law is not an excuse. But let's go now. Websites.
Mhm.
So websites, we all have to spend a lot of money posting blogs, articles, information for our clients so they know what they need to know, so that they know that this is not static. We're actually giving you information so that they can come to the page. That's all about SEO, search engine optimization. But what is happening right now is AIs, artificial intelligence. Well, the problem with AI is that doing a query on, and let's say Google, you go into Google, blah, 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 you put a query there. And Google actually have an AI, and the AI, rather than really giving you like before all of these sites that you can go to read the information, it will give you a summary of what you need to know.
Right.
So then, if you actually use an AI and you say, "Oh, I want to know about this thing," the AI will actually look at all of the different websites, pull the data from there, and give you a summary of the information. So, what's happening? Well, that means that the user is not going to your website. The AI is pulling information from the
Gives it.
website and presenting it to them. So, websites for marketing, I say, they're still essential, but they are not your main core anymore because there may be chances that you may have great information and nobody's going to come in to see it. Under my Taino consultants, I must have hundreds of blogs I have created through the years. And there's still, I tell all of my clients, go there, even have a space, you put the topic, and it will give you all the latest information there. But I have a lot of people that never do it. So now with the AIs, even less, because the AIs will come to my website. I'll rank kind of high on the SEO, but it will not tell the client that that information necessarily came to me. They just plug the
Interesting.
information out. So what do you do with marketing now? Well, marketing now, believe it or not, is going back to the roots of you have to be seen. Depending on the business, you have to be involved in your community so that people know about you and they talk about you. Depending on the business, you have to be involved with the professional organizations. Depending on the business, you may have to actually attend more conference, be a speaker, work with the different colleges. So you have to be seen. So a lot of my clients that are somewhat different in size, but the bigger ones, I say, listen, you are the best provider I know. However, the service you need to know do is not just seeing patients. Somebody else, one of the junior guys can see the patient. You need to be out there for people to see you. So they look for you because you are the expert, and then they will come to your business. That's also where social media comes into it. Uh, I've seen
Absolutely.
many doctors that try to do things that they have crash and burn. There was a lady that used to do aesthetic procedures, and she would be streaming while she was doing that. Well,
Interesting.
yeah, she had a few problems with that in terms of some of the procedures didn't come out the way it was supposed to, and she was
I was gonna say, was she
facing.
getting was she getting consent from the patients as well?
Well, yeah, the people didn't see the patient's face, but it's
Mm,
still because her attention was in the music and in all the dances and all of that, she made
sure.
mistakes and she was called to the board. And I think that either they restricted or they took away her license. So, yes, social media is important because a lot of people will see it. But what is the key thing that they're going to see? It changes. I mean, I've seen people on the TikTok, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and all that. And there's so many different platforms. But again, I go back to first thing you gotta do with your market is identify who they are. But invest on marketing on a monthly basis because marketing is not a okay, I bought this ad and done. No. And depending on where you are is where you want to invest that money. Now, let's go into the next one, compliance. Ooh, there is so much money moving in this direction. It's not funny. So
So,
let's talk from the standpoint of a lot of what I see, which is most of the time when I see it, when it comes to my desk, is already a done deal, and I have to pray and come up with creative ways to help our clients. Because again, a lot of people don't think about compliance until they are in trouble. By then, it's too late, buddy. So now let me see how much I can work for you to reduce the penalties because the penalties are there. And like I say, sad to say that based on where I am, I will say that I don't know anybody that is fully compliant in the United States. It's just impossible. Too
too
many laws.
much.
So the key here is number one is always, always, always have your own policies and procedures, meaning that have them that don't have a policies and procedure with the name of another business. We haven't talked about that before, but I have done all this and I say, and who's this and where are yours? Like I said before, I have gone to businesses that they actually have copies of policies and procedures are created for another client. And I laugh. I say, well, okay, at least they're good enough to be copied, even though that's not what I want. But the key here is federal government expect for you to have policies and procedures regarding compliance in place. And then, like some of the offices say, well, they are in my office manager's desk, and they are here somewhere. No, that's what is the intent of policies and procedures? The intent of policies and procedures is to have a guide for the whole team to actually know what they have to do in case of emergency. I mean, and this is going to be funny, kind of. I was in the Air Force. I flew jets. Guess what will happen? I actually have my policies and procedures strapped to my leg. Because when the plane is going down, it will not help me to say, oh, yeah, the
Yeah,
sergeant, the commander had the policies somewhere on his desk. Well, you might as well kiss it goodbye.
that's going to the back of the plane.
Yeah,
Or
you
the back
had
of the
it.
jet.
And again, we had them memorized. That was our Bible. So
Yeah,
your policies
absolutely.
and procedures are designed to help you. How do you operate? I learned from Dr. Headley at one point in time. He was talking to me and he showed me the key here is systems in every business. I don't care whether you have a business that cleans offices, or you have a business that you do implants, or you are even a cardiovascular surgeon. It doesn't matter. The key is to have a system so everybody knows what they have to do, how they have to do it, and how to document. That's policies and procedures. The fact that compliance is so difficult is even key to have that in place. In the case of EPIC compliance, that we have worked so much at this or for so many years, is we actually, I would say, trip upon something that is actually so much better than we expected in our efforts to provide our customers with something that they can use easily and that we
Absolutely.
can track so that we can show them the metrics. We came up with a system that we developed that actually now we can go to any office, any specialty and say, listen, give us your policies, give us your documents. We will map it, put it on our system, and create the points to measure whether you're in compliance with your system. Now, what does that do? Well, it's not about telling you that you're not doing right. It's telling you where you're doing right, where it is efficient, and what is the outcome so that you can track that what you want is getting done in a way that is automatic. I mean, the logics that we created, human power, no AI, okay, is amazing. But I don't know anybody else that had the ability to do that. So what we have done, and again, going back into what is it that the government want? They want policies and procedures. They want accountability. They want to make sure that everybody's trained. That's exactly what we created on our system. Right now, we only do it for HIPAA privacy, HIPAA security, OSHA, Medicare, Office of the Inspector General. But I already have, and I'm working on others. I mean, I had the protocols for wound care. I'm actually working with a rheumatologist to work on different type of pains. We're working with other, I would say, business associates or partners to create other lines of services for them. So the idea is, because it's so complex, is to create something that they're gonna need. And again, because the government is looking, and now there is so much work for the government in this area that most of the time they don't even have to open an audit on by themselves. Most of the time there will be somebody complaining, and they have so many complaints on a daily basis that they have to look and say, okay, which ones are the ones that have merit. I was last weekend. I was in Tallahassee on the Department of Health, board of medical directors. They have a meeting, and I was there, and it was interesting how some people were very creative in terms of what they were doing, but they were not doing it right, and they didn't have anything to prove that they were doing right. So I saw people that their licenses were taken out. I saw people that were placed on suspension. I saw all kind of actions and fines to go with that. Now, there is something else that was happening, and this is happening both at the state and federal government, is whistleblowers.
Yep. Yep.
Employees are our biggest threat. And this is not to say anything bad about any people or any person that worked for you. But number one, cybersecurity. Cyber criminals are very smart. I mean, I'm doing research daily. I'm looking at all my system, my computers. I do all kind of crazy things because of things I learned in the Air Force, and I just go a little, maybe a little over the top. But it's also because my wife is so nice that her name has been hacked in her system so many times that I almost have a red button by her desk and say, when your computer freezes, not doing what you do, press the button and that shuts down, kills the system. And her system is not connected to any one of my computers. And I have a storage, separate storage units in different places so that they're copying the data on an ongoing basis because of that same thing. So cyber criminals are very smart. Even with all of that, even for me, there have been this year alone 2 times that I almost fell for it. So if
They're
I'm
getting
aware,
smart, that's for
yeah,
sure.
I am aware, I'm looking at, I'm reading, I'm updating, I almost fell twice in a year. It's only 6 months. Your employees will fall for it. And there are times that I'm looking in different organizations and I see an email from a person within the organization to another person. As a matter of fact, telling them, be careful about this thing, enclosed with this email is the patch for that. Guess what? That is actually the cyber criminal
Yeah,
that they already know the domain name. They replicated the signature. They're actually acting as your own IT. You are doing that, and now you're giving them the whole keys of the kingdom. So employees are the easiest way to penetrate every system. And you will see that happening all the time. That's why with the security reminders that we send and what we put about security on a monthly basis is to tell people a little bit of this is happening, this is happening. And before it was more of this is something can happen. Now we're actually using examples in
seen a
every
lot, seen a
yeah.
lot these days. And to your
Oh,
point, I mean, they're getting smarter. I mean, there's emails that come in on my end from like Microsoft Teams, which is, the app that we use to communicate, and it looks legit, but you can, you look at you actually look at it, you're like, no, this is they're trying to they're trying to hack you in, collect information, and it's usually you'll see something in the email that this doesn't look right.
right. I mean, it's almost to the point that right now, and again, this is all regarding healthcare now, we are getting so many calls that I know many people that if they don't recognize the name, they don't answer the phone.
Hmm,
So for me, is I get, as a matter of fact, I got one not too long ago, and I look at it and I say, just, I'm in a webinar, test me. Because test me means now there's so many people that have my own cell phone number, and it's just that right now there's nothing secure. So any
sure.
information about you, including your social security number, can be found. So no, there's no security. So how do we go about that? Because the cybersecurity and a lot of the efforts from the government is based on that. Cyber crimes, the cases we're looking at, again, this is happening hundreds of thousands of occasions in an hour because they are using computers to do it. So they're multiplying their efforts and they are upgrading and changing their tactics. They're keeping up with the news so that, oh, this is happening in this area. Let's create this email and send it to that area. So what does that mean is that from the standpoint of a business, especially healthcare, we have a big target on our backs. Our employees are our biggest risk. But also from the standpoint of complaints. We have so many complaints, and then people say, okay, well, I'm leaving and I'm going to report you. It is like the hospitality market that people say, well, if you don't do what they want, they're going to report you, they're going to give you a bad review. And they're weaponizing that. So it goes back, what do we do? How do we protect the company? And even to the point that there are times that I spend more time on human resources, memo for records, counteraction of potential litigation with employees and people close to the company. So you gotta be aware of that. You gotta be looking at that. Now, in
Absolutely.
addition to that, because like I say, It's almost half an hour already. And all I've been doing is giving you highlights of what I'm seeing. What are the problems? What are the topics? Where do we have to go? And then what I will do is I will put all of this in on paper. I will send it to you, Ray, so you can send it to anybody. I'm going
Absolutely.
to create a blog on the Taino Consultants with this in, and also the corrective actions. Because this is today, 2025. What is happening? Well, let's talk a little bit about changes in HIPAA. I remember in 1995 when people were talking about HIPAA, I said, oh my God, this is going to be bigger than Medicare. And people laugh and say, nah, that's just another thing that we have to do. It's not a big deal. Well, guess what? Look at everything we have to do now. So right now, for example, and I have a list here. This I wasn't expected to be a requirement, but it's the multi-factor authentication. I hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it with a passion.
So,
But now it's going to be becoming mandatory under HIPAA.
gotta
Multi-factor
have it these
authentication.
days.
Yeah. So it's almost like embrace it. Don't fight it. You're not going to win. The other one is data encryption. People still don't get it. And this is not new. It's just that this is going to be enforced now. Any data that is at rest or in transit must be encrypted. So that means is your
That was
server.
a that used to be addressable, correct?
It
Now
used to
it's
be
yeah.
addressable.
Yeah.
And now is no, it's a requirement. Forget about addressable. That
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Everything that was addressable, consider it required. Because if you don't do it, I don't know anybody that will be able to justify a reason not to do it. So it's required. So encrypt, encrypt, encrypt.
A
Even if it's in
good
your, go ahead.
there's a we covered Jose and I we covered DaVita Health, that
Yes,
dialysis group that went through a ransomware attack, and that essentially highlighted the importance of encryption because they were only able to get into a part of their system. They were still able to operate
right,
regardless. They didn't take down everything, and part of that was because of encryption. So
right. And
um,
that's critical.
yeah.
The other thing that is new that I'm having a hard time trying to get it across is that there is a requirement to have an inventory of all of the technological assets in your office. Well, let's just stop there for a second. What are the technological assets? Most people say, oh, that's talking about the desktops. We got it covered. We know where all the desktops are. And some people say, oh, we had the laptop. And I think, what about the cell phones?
Hmm.
We're using cell phones right
iPads.
now as a computer. So are you keeping track of those? What about equipment? And when they say, what are you talking about? PFTs, pulmonary function tests, are done in smaller devices now that actually you put the patient information, you record it, and it's there so that you can transmit it to the EHR. What about those? Do you have
Good point.
anything? EKGs, X-rays. I mean, you mentioned it, and I can tell you about any one of those equipment that you have in the office that have patient information. Copiers.
Fax machines.
Yeah. So is you need to keep an inventory of those and have a network map. I had not seen it ever, a network map. But when you talk about people in other industries, they say, oh, yeah, 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 we do have the network map and we update it, our IT keeps it up to date. Well, that's not the way it works on healthcare. I mean, how many offices we know and businesses that some manager have their own computer that they take home
Hmm.
and they use it with PHI? I mean, like I say, in my case, I work with many different clients. Only for one, I am an employee and I don't touch EPHI. No, I don't need to do my job for that. Just because all I need to do is what happened, how did it happen? But patient identity, I don't need it for anything. I go beyond that. But there are people that do. How many office managers we don't know that resigned from one place, moved to another, and took their computer where they were working?
Yep.
I
See
mean,
it all the time.
There is one, this was a rehab place, I remember. And in this rehab place, they were employees say, listen, I cannot take my computer home from work. So what I do is that I use a memory stick and I put all the files there. Then I take it home. I work on that during the weekend or in the afternoon. Then when I go back to the office, I plug it in and download all of that. I say, oh my God. First, anything can be actually moved into that memory stick, and now you
Yep.
are infecting the whole system. Happened multiple times. Number two is that memory stick get lost if it's encrypted or not. Now you have this. I have one manager, billing manager from this business that went on a trip to Europe
No.
and she was carrying her computer. At one point in time, she was taking the train. She was basically distracted. Somebody stole her computer with all of the patient financial data and the business financial data in that computer. I don't know what happened with it, and I don't want to know. But I know that it happened. So I say, come on, people. There is no such thing as common sense, and then there are things that you must do. So that scanning is critical. Then they came up with two different things that is interesting. And these, I mean, as you know, I don't even know how many SRAs a year. And every SRA that Taino Consultant does, I personally review and I customize to the cost to that basic entity. Well, one of the things is annual audits. Well, the annual audits are not the same thing as an SRA. And now you have to do this. Then in addition to that, you have to do two other things. One is vulnerability scanning and penetration tests. I actually talked to an IT company and I said, listen, how much will you charge me for a penetration test? I think they were talking about $25,000. I know that there's some that charge less, but penetration tests are expensive. And then you got to
Hmm.
look at it. Is a penetration test a physical penetration test, or I would say a virtual penetration test that you get into the system? It doesn't matter. The key here is now we have to do it. So that's expensive when
So
you look at
that's separate from a security risk assessment.
it is a separate thing. So at the same time, what I'm going to try to do is to incorporate some of these in the security risk assessment, but give it to the client as an option.
I see.
You can have a basic security risk assessment, or you can have one that includes everything. Understand that, and this is a state and federal government. They understand and they agree that not everyone can be perfect in everything. And that's why, and this is important because it goes back to EPI. If the Office of Civil Rights notice or you can prove to them that you have actually take actions to protect the data, to follow the law, then by law, and this was one law that was signed by President Trump in
Mhm.
his first term, is that if you can prove that, then by law, they have to take it easy. They have to basically lower, as a matter of fact, give me a second, I have it right here.
Sure.
They will consider that as a mitigating factor in the investigation, in the settlement, and in the fines. So
Interesting.
it's not that they're going to erase it, but they are going to consider as nobody's perfect. You have been trying to do this thing, that's fine. And I think clients with fines that have multiple zeros, six and more, okay? And they have been able to get away with nothing because of the mitigating factors. They were able to prove that. So you got to look and say, oh, wow, okay. So and I tell the clients, because I have done different things using EPI that even goes back to other requirements so that when we look at it and say, no, this requirement is met by this policy, this requirement is by this. So we have a table that we can provide at any point in time to show any auditor, any investigation. Yes, our clients are actually doing all of these things. So those are mitigating factors. Okay. But then let's go into, since I mentioned Trump, let's go into the tariff. That
Yeah.
a lot of people are concerned about that. How does that play in the healthcare environment? Well, this is big because number one is up till the tariff were implemented, we were able to buy some products, some drugs from other countries. And doing that actually helped us reduce the cost. Well, with the tariff right now, what we're looking at is number one, there are things that are not being shipped because they're too expensive. There are things that are not being shipped because we're still under negotiation, so we don't know what price is going to be. And there's some that because of the tariff, now there's so much more money that we're paying more for that. So you look at that in terms of the immediate effect is it hurts because we don't have the availability and we're going to pay more, period. Okay, so let's move forward. How is that going to affect us in the future? Well, it depends again, what is the product that you're buying. But in the future, when you look at it, it's going to be good for the US economy because we're going to be producing more of the things here because they will be cheaper here
Too
than
much,
buying it
too
there.
many regulatory challenges, you know?
Yes.
So easy. Nah, I definitely
Yeah.
see the long-term
Yeah, but
view
it's
of
not
it.
going to be right away because you got to look at it. These big companies have to basically start, create their facilities here,
Yep.
create the process, the production. Any one of these in a simple thing will take 6 months to a year to be able to produce here. And then you have to train the employees. But then the catch here is going to be good for the overall economy. But even if it's something produced here at rates that are fair for the employees and the benefits, it's always going to be more expensive than something produced in another country. It's just the way it is. So you got to look at it. What is the win out of this one? Well, the win out of this one is that now that person that is employed doing this thing will have additional cash. So it would be an easier target for us to bring them to our services, our products, so they can buy something and we will benefit from that standpoint. But from the other standpoint, it may become a little more pricey even in terms of
I
operations.
just see from a business perspective, you're reducing your dependency on, you know, everything's done in the US. You don't have to rely on a multitude of companies and
True, but again, there are things that will never be done in the United States, and there
true,
are software
true,
companies that they don't have to be here.
true.
As a matter of fact, under HIPAA, there is something that I look at it and say, wow, they're talking about this again. There is a new national security restriction on health data transfer. It's a big mouthful. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Is that now, before you use somebody outside the United States to handle that patient data, you gotta be careful because it may be a country that you are not supposed to do business with, that you are not supposed to give them access to that. And multiple things come to mind. I don't want to get into too many details because again, it's the timing issue. But now we got to be careful about where is my patient data going? Where's my business data going? What am I doing to protect myself from that going anywhere? And then, of course, to document that so that when somebody comes in, let's say a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, say, "Oh,
Sure.
we can do this and we're going to save $3 million." Yeah, but do you really look at what is beyond the price? Can we even do that? What are the risks that we're assuming? Because yeah, we saved $3 million, but then the liability is going to be $100 million. No, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So will you be able to sustain that and do it in a way that is legal? It goes back to the compliance factor that sometimes people forget. But now, let's look at then, in terms of the tariff, let's look at prescriptions. There's a lot in the news about prescription. Believe it or not, under compliance, it affects our clients. Number one is that if our clients are actually issuing the medications, it's something. If they're a pharmacy, it's something else. There are a lot of things going on with this. But the one thing that I see is that the federal government have been pushing healthcare providers more and more towards risk and being part of a community so that it's easier to pay one group with 100 multi-specialty, 100 provider multi-specialty clinics
Sure.
than each one independently. It's cheaper. Just look at the data, software data moving back and forth, the transmission, all that. So when you look at it from that standpoint, if we can save money on the medications, then that reduces the operational cost for that entity. That means that you're going to have a profit factor. I mean, I'm actually working with a doctor and we're reviewing all the medications, just doing it on a one-on-one basis as new medications come out. And one patient, we can actually do a minor change that will not affect the patient health. Just most times it actually benefits them. We have been able to reduce our costs by $100,000. It's crazy. So if we will have the ability to buy the medications at a lower cost and that our patient population, because on a daily basis, and I talk with the providers anytime I'm trying doing a training, I say, listen, you gotta be careful about what medication you are actually prescribing to this patient. And then look at me and say, but why? I mean, this is a medication that I need. I say, yeah, but you gotta look at the different prescription pattern, the different contracts.
Sure.
For that patient, let's say he's Blue Cross, that medication you are giving then could be $50 a month or a prescription. That patient may not have $50 to buy a prescription because now they got to look into either I buy my medicine or I eat. And that's where a lot of our population is. I mean, I have seen so many indigents, it's not even funny. So I look at it and say, okay, so what is it that we can do to help the patients be compliant? Well, a lot of the time we're looking at generic. If I give the patient this generic drug that is actually covered by the plan, that is actually shipped to their houses, I have a better chance of them to take it and increase their health, which indirectly is going to increase their quality of life, which indirectly is going to actually make it more for them to have more money to do things. So I got to look at this, and again, it's not going to happen overnight. But I do believe that in the long term, this is going to be really good for everybody in the United States, regardless whether you are in healthcare or not. But then let's look at other things. Let's look at, again, like I said, money. Like I told you before, is where is the money? Money, well, I was talking about money when I talk about what services and product. That's also is
Insurance.
how much are they going to pay me for
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
You and Jose have covered a lot of issues with the insurances in the last couple months. The insurances are there to make money. Forget about the thing about they're here to serve. No, it's not.
Oh,
The insurances are there to sell you a product. The problem with the insurances is that people don't understand the difference between health insurance and health coverage. Health insurance is a product. It's something that you buy. You call it a subscription if you want to. That if you go to the providers, the organizations, the entities that have a contract with that insurance company, you may get a reduced price when you go and get your services. That's all there is. But you, as a patient, do not have a contract with the provider. Your contract is with the
with
insurance
the
company,
insurance.
and they
Yeah.
don't get that. So when they go to the provider, the problem is, and this is where we go also into ghost networks. Well, they say, yeah, you have all of these names of providers there? Well, the fact that the insurance have contract with all of those providers doesn't mean that they have a contract with the product that you're buying as a patient. So all of a sudden, and
This
again,
turns into a nightmare
yeah, you
as
as
a
the
patient.
client, yeah, you as the client, you don't know where to go for coverage. I have people say, listen, I just bought this plan with Aetna, it's very cheap, so it's great for me. I say, yeah, how many providers participate? Oh, I have this book with all the providers. Do me a favor, call and see if you can get an appointment. They're not accepting this plan. They're not accepting new patients. If they are lucky, which is very few, they say that they can see me in 6 months. And I laugh. Mental health is worse. With
That
mental health is, yeah, I can get a telemedicine appointment in 6 months. I say, 6 months with your depression or
6
your
months.
anxiety, you're gonna be dead.
Yeah.
What's the point? So the change that I have seen, and this comes from organizations as large as big hospital organizations to single providers. They're saying no more insurance, or I don't take
Uh,
Blue Cross, or I don't take United, I don't take Cigna, period. And now they're looking at ways to go back, I would say almost to the 1960s. And I wasn't alive. Well, I was alive in the 1960s. Okay. But the idea, I wasn't looking into money. I was a baby.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. So the point is that now they are looking and saying, at that point in time, it was cash. I'm gonna do this service to you, but it's if you pay me this much. And I know patients that are saying, listen, I prefer to pay you cash, and I know who's gonna see me and it's gonna see me on a timely basis, that to wait for my insurance. And then all of a sudden, the insurance, my wife went through a surgery not too long ago, and the insurance came in and said, oh, yeah, that's part of your deductible. So we don't cover any of that. So you pay. And when you look at the insurance plans, it's two, three
Like
thousand dollars. Well, you're paying $2,000, $3,000 because of the insurance being involved. But if you would have talked to the doctor, that $2,000, $3,000 and
would
paid
charge
cash
you, yeah.
could have been 500. So you would have made a killing. So you are seeing that these organizations, these institutions are looking at, maybe we want to get back into some kind of,
Cash pay.
United States is difficult because there's so many insurances. They really have control of the market, but it's starting to change a little bit. So in order for us, in terms of healthcare professionals, to make money, we have to look at where is the money. And the fact that I go back to the AIs, insurance company invested a lot of money on AIs to deny your claims. And then sometimes they deny for later sins. Sometimes they just deny them, period, because they're not that smart. So it could be the right claim, everything was processed in time, but the AI is still denying. And now it's on you to spend the money to put all that information together to prove to this AI that you did it right and you deserve to get paid. So I'm looking more and more at organizations that actually do that fight for me, that they invest in the AI, so they have their own AIs to go after, that they actually fight for every penny for me, that when I really look at it in terms of return on investment, I will be paying less by using them and gaining more money than if I try to do it myself. I mean, there's one company in particular that I know of that they would say, listen, if we cannot bring in enough money to cover our expenses and actually show you that there's more money on the table, so basically you're making money on that, we will not charge you and we'll terminate the contract. So that means that they are well, actually, it's all about systems. Their
Sure.
systems are that clean that they know and they're keeping up with the insurance organizations that they have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to create this structure to basically avoid paying us what we're doing. So you got to look at all of this, and I'm going to close with a little more with AIs. I'm having a fight with AIs lately because they're dumb. I'm telling them, hey, look at this law. This is what I want. I like the script basically and say, now give me the information to make it pretty. I'm using them as a glorified spell checker. And it's still some of the things that they come up with. Oh my God, it makes my head spin. And I never use just one. I normally use two or three different AIs. Then I put it together to come up with something that, okay, still save me time. So instead of 3 weeks,
Definitely.
5 weeks doing something, I may do it in a day. But it's still, if you don't know what you're doing using an AI for certain things, it could cost you the business. But you have to embrace them.
Yeah.
They're coming. The way the technology, the software is evolving is exponential. So the thing is, there are people that are going to be without a job. And the funny part is that they're going to ask you, they're going to give you a job and say, I want you to do this job. And then while you're doing the job, I want you to train this AI in terms of what you do. Well, what's happening? That means you're going to be without a job. Just well, actually, why every couple of days I look at something about AI evolution and how the AI is going to make these jobs basically obsolete. I was looking at one that was doing the job of a lawyer and say, lawyers are
Yeah.
not safe. These AIs will basically write the contract, review the contract, and tell you what are the things on this contract that you need to negotiate. Wow. Of course, in terms of
Interesting.
drawing, pictures, and all of that, artists, AIs are, I mean, they're still making mistakes. I still see things with 6 fingers,
There's been some
three
cra
eyes.
There's been some crazy, like accurate ones, and then yeah, there's some bad ones. But it all goes back to what it's the prompt. It's what you tell it. It's how for those. I just know for those artwork and stuff, you got to be super detailed on that prompt.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
But like I say, it's billing. AIs
yeah,
are doing the billing. They're
yep,
doing the coding. They're reviewing the notes to the point of there's one system that I'm very impressed that you are actually talking with the patient and you can be talking about everything. The AI is collecting data. When you finish that appointment, you have a progress note completed that is only about the medical pieces that they gathered from the information you were talking about. Crazy and good. I say,
absolutely.
wow. So that is going to happen. So basically, I don't know if you know about many transcriptionists now in business. It used to be that all of the offices were using one or two transcriptionists.
Yep, yep,
That's pretty much gone. So you got to look at it and say, well, what will be the jobs for the future? Because there will always be a transition. But we need to look at it that everything that is happening right now is the past. You have to look at the trends about where are we going. And that's what we do with EPI. With EPI, everything that we're working on, I mean, like I said, I have more work on EPI and Emmanuel, our COO, is keeping me busier. I don't know who works for whom, let's put it that way. But it's because of all these changes. And I'm not done with one thing, and I'm reading something else is coming down the pipe. So we're putting an emphasis on trying to stay ahead. And we have always done that. The key
absolutely,
here is for our clients to learn about our product because we're trying to make it easier for you to use so that you can concentrate on what you do best, which is your own client. And let us be the backup. But you have to be up to speed. So today, what I wanted to do is give everybody kind of an overall idea of these are all the things that are happening that I'm seeing basically on a daily basis, some of these things. You need to know how that affects your business so that you will know where to put your resources. Where do you want to concentrate to make it? And in a way, when I look at this, and it is my business is not about making money, it's about creating the platform for our own Epi family to have something where they can feed their families, to create a platform so that our clients will have something that they can grow and take care of their families and their families of their team members. It's
absolutely.
all about that relationship. That's what we do. So yeah, we're growing. We're growing 20, 30% day to day, month to month, year to year, but we're still not touching but very few people. So what I want to do is use my information any which way you want to, but use it. Check it out, test, but use that so that you can make your life better in terms of work. Okay, that's 2:27. I got 3 minutes left. Any questions, any comments?
Yes, if anybody has any questions, concerns, please feel free to put it in the chat. If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, or maybe Dr. Delgado to discuss in the near future, let us know. We usually try to have them on here at least one episode a month. Please feel free to leave your feedback for us. And Dr. Delgado, I appreciate your insights as always, your experience, and really, truly, your ability to make complex issues understandable. Um,
Well, let me ask you a
just
question.
so much going on, and
Is any of this thing new? Was it useful even to you?
no, absolutely. The in particular, just just sort of the overview of the global tariffs and what that could potentially look like as far as long term. It'll be interesting because right now, like you said, it's everything's under negotiation still. We're not even there yet. So
Yeah. Well, think about it that the only thing that we can guarantee is change. And
yeah,
change means opportunities, but opportunities for those that are looking and are prepared to take advantage of that. So if you're still looking at an old business model and
yeah,
you haven't looked at how your customer base is changing, how the business is changing, you're not going to survive. So embrace change, apply to you. And then if you have questions, then we're here. If we don't
absolutely,
know the answer or we cannot provide the assistance, more than likely we know somebody that will. So let's work together. Okay? Okay.
absolutely.
So
Well, well,
229, I'm getting back to my other work. Last question. Yes, no, maybe.
I don't see anything coming in, but we'll let you out of a minute early today, Dr. Delgado. I appreciate it so much. And again, for those that are chiming in, this is recorded. This will be going up on our YouTube channel. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now. So episodes will be shown there. Please feel free to check those out. We'll be sending out an email as well with registration for next week's webinar, as well as a recap. And Dr. Delgado, if I heard you correctly, you are finishing an article about the
Yes, I'm
subject.
going to finish in a blog about this thing that will provide the same information and maybe a little more.
Perfect, perfect. And we'll make sure that everybody gets that blog post as well. So
Okay. Have a
awesome.
great day now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Delgado, and we'll see
Okay.
you on the
Bye.
next one. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Sunshine, getting rid of living in the starlight, getting rid of living in the sunshine.